Welcome everybody to the Click Podcast, your show for DAO insights and deep dives. The DAO space is hard to track on your own, so we have brought to you some of the best DAO operators in the space who will get you the insights and who are working at the frontier of the coordination of work. I am Abhishek Ajit, and along with me is my co-host Abhishek Sanavne. Hi Abhishek, how are you doing?
Hey man, all good. Hey everybody.
Oh, fantastic, man. Super enthusiasm today for once.
I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah,
I've got a
man.
few questions here.
That's good, man. That's good. Along with us, the reason you all will be wondering why we're all excited today is because we have a guest we've had the opportunity to speak to earlier, also in our past role. Also, we've had the opportunity to work with him, and we find him to be one of the most knowledgeable and really cool DAO operators out there in the space. He's working with a cool community to kind of spread the skill set and the quality of what Web3 analytics is all about. And I must say, he probably has the third coolest name in crypto, Drake Danner from MetricsDAO. Hi, Drake. Glad to have you on the show.
Hey, gentlemen. Glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So, first of all, is this a cover story that you got going on here? What kind of a superhero are you in reality?
That's great. That's great. I know, right? It's got the little bit of the Clark Kent. I wonder if my parents meant to do that. But yeah, it's helpful to have a memorable name, right? People remember who I am. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Bruce Banner, Wade Wilson, Khan, Reed Richards, and now you have Drake Danner away. If you could be a superhero, what would you want to be, bro?
Honestly, dude, I think Batman's got it figured out, right? He's got all the gadgets, got a good life when he's not working. I think that's the way to go.
Oh, that's baller, man. I would have loved to take a spin in the Batmobile. And plus, who would say no to Catwoman, right? One day we'll get to the revelations of your superhero story. What is your crypto origin story? How did you get into the whole crypto space and what's it been like for you so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been following crypto since 2014, 2015 or so, but never really got super deep. I'd done the research and read the white papers, but throughout school, I was really focused on getting into startups and like, how do I get into tech? So I studied science, technology, and society, as well as computer science, joined a fintech early on, got to go through the accelerator process with them and see the whole startup scaling journey. But at the same time, my crypto was in the back of my mind. Most exciting technology that was going to come out in my lifetime. I wanted to be involved. So after getting to go through the process with the fintech and seeing how we could scale an organization with data access, I knew I had to get into crypto. Initially, had found Dune as a way to bring my SQL skills from more traditional background into kind of the crypto space. Really appreciated that like all the analytics and work that I did could be publicly shared because I was just showing public knowledge in a different format, which was very different than the type of analytics or process work that I got to do at my job. Things were proprietary. I could show my bosses and my teammates, but I couldn't show the world. So yeah, after doing a bunch of Dune stuff on my own for a while, I got recruited to join Flipside, do data pipelining there. And the past year has just been an absolute whirlwind, but it's been amazing.
Just having audience seat for all of that, it sounds pretty exciting also. For people who may not know what Flipside Crypto is all about, would you like to just give them a little bit of a heads up of what Flipside Crypto is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So Flipside performs a variety of services for its partners, and its mission is really to help blockchain succeed. Flipside is primarily a data provider that's ingesting and curating data for, I want to say 10 to 15 different blockchains, a lot of EVM chains, Flow, Solana, zones. And then in addition to the data services, Flipside also has a very active governance arm. It's also historically run a lot of bounty programs, so producing insights for those partner clients. But yeah, tons of different services by Flipside, again, really just helping blockchains and partner protocols succeed.
No, that's pretty lit. Even I did a little bit of reading. Flipside Crypto is having the entire community come in and answer the sort of questions that any other community member could drop in, or generally what the partner protocols actually have submitted to Flipside Crypto. I read a PR article also that Flipside Crypto had around 150,000 bounty submissions the other day, and that's a lot of submissions for a community to handle. And really, man, and how is it for you to deal? The way I see it, Flipside Crypto has a different model compared to Dune and Nano. You've opened up the entire database and you've just ensured a community interface where they can come in and actually deal with the sort of questions that your partners has. How is the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because I see a alignment with MetricsDAO also, and it would be great to transition from that to this. So this community angle, how has it worked out for Flipside Crypto compared to the general things that are done in Dune and Nansen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a really good point that, where Flipside makes its money is more on its partners, the partner side. So Flipside does a deal with it, kind of that's where Flipside is making its money. Whereas Dune and Nansen, which are both fantastic products, they're charging end users for those products. So it's just a little bit of a different incentive alignment for the people involved in that type of interaction. But yeah, Flipside's definitely, I think, taken a very active approach to wanting to have free data for its end users. And that goes beyond the query interface to API endpoints for every query, which can be pulled out of Flipside's system, as well as a full-on SDK so that people can use Python or TypeScript to kind of access Flipside's data. And then taking that further into MetricsDAO and thinking about actually pushing things a step further and thinking about what is an organization that is super high knowledge in data analytics and maybe isn't even a data provider organization. Flipside did a really fantastic job of having kind of this layer of data access as well as a layer of accessing the data and showing off the cool things that could be done with it. MetricsDAO is mostly just that top layer. How do we exist as kind of like an organized power usage layer to show off like what all these different platforms can do? We want to show off what Flipside can do. We want to show off what Dune can do. The graph, subgrounds, transpose, footprint. We have all these different data partners that want to come work with us and help our community understand how to maximize their tooling and to do all of that for the purpose of our partner desires. So it's been a cool ride.
Drake, you just briefly mentioned that how Flipside makes it revenue. And Flipside, so you said that you mentioned that they make their money by charging the end user. But if you look at the model, it's a model wherein the Dune or like the competitor will start undercutting it. So where does it, in order to gain users, where does it end? And if they want to figure out a different monetization model, is it like Metrics working with Dune or with Flipside to partner up? Like, how is the model kind of looking?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I personally am more biased towards Flipside and Metrics model, which is more of like making money from your partners instead of from your participants. Especially, I think in MetricsDAO and Flipside historically through their bounty program as well, the true value in that system is coming from the analysts. The analysts are the ones that are creating value for everyone involved. Obviously, like the data provider is creating a foundational value that allows that value creation to occur. Personally, I think there's more value in incentivizing those users to create things than charging them to create things. And I want to be clear, like a lot of these other products like Nansen and Dune, they do have free interfaces for folks to engage with them. You can go on Dune and query stuff. You can look at stuff. You don't need to pay to do those things. There's just different value capture mechanisms for all these business models. Everyone's approaching it differently. I don't think anyone's figured it out or done it right yet. But personally, I think that looking at the space, I would probably rather be deal making with the people that have big pockets like Solana instead of deal making with the Solana analysts.
That's interesting. I love the take that want to make money from your partners rather than take it from the people who are coming in to analyze. And that's a good segue to get into why create this community of analysts itself. What exactly did interfacing with the analysts give you that as a startup, you weren't able to do that? How did this whole model kind of transition into?
Yeah, totally. I think that when you look at like why you might look at a DAO structure instead of a more traditional structure, I think there's like a few things that are super obvious. I guess maybe two main buckets I think about is like flexible access to talent. So DAOs are much more porous in the way that they bring talent in compared to traditional organizations. I'm happy to dive more into that, but I think too, there's ephemeral initiatives. So talent serves different purposes at different points in time, either like when within the development of an entire organization or within a specific initiative. And then also like by creating a space that is conducive to part-time workers, you're going to find very passionate people. And passion projects can really turn into something more than just a passion project when they have the resources that a DAO or an organization provides them. The other bucket I look at is maybe more just like philosophical differences around IP versus open building. I think that more traditional organizations are a lot more concerned with what's proprietary, what do they own, what can they control. This was a lot of my experience at my traditional organization. And then coming into crypto, it's like, open building, exogenous innovation. How do I do things to make other people build better versions of what I built? I always like to say that like the best version of my analytics work that I've done is either someone forking my work and making it better, or me forking someone else's work and making their work better. Between kind of the flexible access to talent and like the willingness to operate in an open space, the DAO just provides more conducive networking space and more design space for what we want to do.
So you provide a networking space and you create this hub of community where it becomes easy to source that sort of talent. As a startup, if you were to interface, it's not that simple to curate and organize a community that way. But being a DAO, it enables you to really get the community involved towards a shared vision. There are a lot of incentive mechanisms that you can put it if you want to get in that sort of talent also. And much more importantly, being a startup, your jurisdiction prevents you from accessing and making the most of your talent. If you're sitting in America, you're restricted to the talent out of America itself, unless if you're looking out for freelancers or something more globally. But being part of a DAO, it allows you to transfer ownership to any sort of analyst sitting across the globe. And when all these people come together, you have a global pool of people that's working to make that analytics much more sharper. Something that being a startup in a certain jurisdiction doesn't really give you. And the sort of community that you've curated with MetricsDAO, it's also really exciting to see. I would love to understand more of what did you first envision when you first started MetricsDAO? Who were the people that you worked with and how has that vision evolved with time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when I looked at this opportunity space, I was already very familiar with Dune and Dune's network of analysts. I was familiar with Flipside and Flipside's network of analysts. And I saw opportunity for a network that joined disparate networks, if you will. So instead of having kind of these different networks that exist in different spaces, how can we combine these networks and actually access the full power that exists within the union of them? So traditionally, when I look at like the data space, maybe a year or two ago, you do have these almost factions that are very focused on the tooling that they use. And when I think about analytics and value creation, I don't think it's vendor locked. I think it's just a concept. If you can find information that's on the chain, you can communicate it well, don't really care which tool you use. Flipside had been running their bounty program that was more focused on using their tooling, and Dune had their own processes and kind of freelance opportunities that were more focused through their tooling. Saw an opportunity that was basically just process driven with a tooling layer underneath it. And by having, again, that kind of network that joins these other networks and then can create a more expansive network in these other data provider spaces, a huge community in the graph as well. We just access a much larger opportunity space than if we all stay in our maybe vendor specific factions.
The way I see it, you mentioned that starting this sort of DAO enables you to get a network that wouldn't have been possible if you had done it on your own. Being a Flipside Crypto means some analysts would be thinking, okay, the whole Dune versus Nansen versus Flipside. But here, that entire image is blurred, and all you care about is curating the best possible analysts working to get that standard. That's a really good way of seeing this. I had seen prior to this interview, I'd seen an interview with the CEO of Flipside, and there's a lot of connect with at its heart how you guys actually want to build this community of analytics and how it was community run. But being the startup world and the way it is, you just wanted to fall into those dynamics. So what was it like for you actually to set up this community and dealing with your work at Flipside and handling the chaotic nature of what meant, overseeing a DAO, the whole tooling, you have to deal with Gnosis saves, you have to deal with that's a whole different world out there compared to what you were taught, right? So what was the whole experience for you that way?
Yeah, it was definitely a little rocky at the start, I would say. I learned a lot very quickly. So initially, like my role at Flipside has been data pipelining. So like taking kind of the raw data off nodes that our ingestion team is pulling in and then modeling that for end users. Very different type of work than organizational development or the types of things that I've been doing recently. So balancing the two of those initially was very difficult. Fortunately, Flipside was very supportive in giving me space to dive into the initial bootstrapping. A lot of that was really just team units that we need. What are the functions that we need to do? Who are the people that we need to perform those functions? So initially, like bringing in a network of people that were prominent in these different data provider spaces and could provide legitimacy in those spaces, as well as like access the network within them. And then moving from there into what's our general structure? How do we start to stack out these pods? Maybe our initial council members, as we call them, aren't necessarily the people that are performing the day-to-day operations. So finding those day-to-day operators, building out kind of DAO ops around governance, treasury. We have a growth team that's really fantastic. We have bounty ops, which is like supporting the main thing. And then also growing this participant network. There is all these concepts in the DAO of like, we have our pods, we have our teams, but like, again, the true value is coming from the analysts, which I think about as the participant network. So everything that our contributors should be doing should be supporting our participants and our partners so that our participants can produce the outputs for our partners. The tooling stack exploration has been fun. I'm curious like what you guys have seen too, because I know you have familiarity in that space and picking different tools, getting on with all the vendors, like seeing the state of where things are has been very fascinating. We've ended up with a really good tool stack in MetricsDAO to help us do what we need to do. And then I think the base layer with all the DAO tools is the tool doesn't do the job for you. You still got to do the job, but it can make the job a lot easier.
In that sense, every DAO kind of goes through that transition. That early stage is the hardest to work out when it comes to the operations and figuring out the structure and what sort of tools to use that way. How is the DAO? What does the DAO structure look like for people who are not aware of MetricsDAO? The thing is, when DAOs figure out their structure, they have certain outcomes in mind. Like you take a look at, for example, the way they structure their investment pipeline, they want to ensure that their deal pipeline has great impact on the ecosystem, but they want to care about diversity. They want to have that degree of equality within the teams, and they want to target a lot of different verticals also. Accordingly, they orient their mentors, their seasons accordingly so that they can train them. What were the outcomes you were looking for with the DAO structure you were building, and how is the DAO shaped accordingly?
Yeah, so I think initially we took a very emergent approach, and I really like this delineation of like emergent versus precision community building. So initially with this emergent approach, we came in, hey, we have some ideas, we have some people in the room, what's going to come of this? An emergent building can lead to really amazing outcomes, and it can lead to things that you didn't expect or plan for, but it can also be a bit slower sometimes. So we've oscillated back and forth between these emergent and more precision-based approaches over time. I'd say more recently taking a more precision-based approach and being a little bit more prescriptive about how to like micro emergent spaces almost, and like having like layers of that precision and emergent building. So structure wise, we have this Genesis Council. These are the initial people that we brought in that again really gave us access to the right networks. A lot of these people were in our personal networks already, so the concept of getting to build something together was very exciting. They perform some advisory functions as well as again just that access to network. We do have a group of contributors as well. It's probably around 30 people right now. These people are working on different operational teams, so performing treasury functions, doing growth things. Again, our growth team is really fantastic. They lead educational workshops, do just general marketing things. We also then have this huge network of participants. And again, this is like the big value. So when I look at where the DAO should go in the future, I think that like the contributor list should shrink and the participant list should balloon, because really, again, we want the participants to be the most active and the most prominent people in this network. We manage things on the contributor side with a series of badges that give us access to different token or different tools that use token gates. And then on the participant side, we use a fungible token called xMetrics, which is like a reputation token. As we continue to build towards our eventual token launch, that'll go hand in hand with that type of token, as well as kind of the protocol that will facilitate everything. And then around that, we also have obviously our network of partners. So those are inclusive of like our partners that are paying us. It might be like blockchains like Harmony or Terra, protocols like Uniswap and Olympus, or research firms like Messari. And then again, I also like to think about the data providers in the network. A lot of them, again, work closely with our growth team, just come in, do workshops, help upscale the network of participants. How do you use the graph to do something that you aren't able to do on Dune, et cetera?
Super interesting, Drake. So I'm just trying to understand that there are so many layers that are there. How are you trying to create a culture in a decentralized workspace like that? How are you going about it? What are the ethos? What are the core principles there? So if you can delve into that, it'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, I want to shout out the growth team here. I think initially this team has been called Marcom, which kind of was marketing communications community, now called growth. But there's really this importance of communicating at every level. So when you communicate, when you market in the traditional sense, I think it's a little bit more of, hey, the team is coming up with a story to tell the world. I think that communications and DAO spaces are like so much more nuanced and fluid. So you need to be like basically marketing to your core team, marketing to your like core supporters, marketing to your network. And like the type of marketing that you're doing is very different. It's not like necessarily persuading some sort of action. It's actually just communicating information. And then if we can drive alignment at every level, that's how we get organizational alignment that we can move towards our goals together. So a lot of that comes from our core team, like taking on maybe what might sound like more traditional practices, but we do retros, we do strategy sessions. We really get together with the people that are in the weeds on a day-to-day basis to understand what's going, what's not going well. And then again, work with the growth team to ensure that any plans or goals that we have are being properly communicated at every level. Transparency and collaboration are two of the critical things that I think are important in all of these spaces. It gets back again to like just the ethos of this space. We have public information, we're all working together, but the way that you structure and communicate that public information is very impactful. There are, of course, other values held by the organization. We do have like a code of conduct that's going through governance right now, as well as just some general things in our constitution. But for me, transparency and collaboration are probably the two most critical underlying values.
Any real community that you see always stresses on these two things, along with what I find, if it depends on the alignment of intentions also. If you really care and you're trying to contribute, allow for that space to contribute, and that kind of really retains them. We just did an episode with the Abigochi ecosystem. There's a guild called the GMI, which deals with all sorts of content creation, and they're independent, but they care about the game so much that they've built an entire independent game focused on developing content for them. And Drake, you must see that all they do is enable a space where people can just come in and contribute without any sort of critiquing, without anything. They just create pathways to contribution. It can be, even as Michaelium from GMI said, even a drawing on a napkin that represents what Abigochi is all about. And that allows the community to get involved in a much more devoted sense than anything possible that way. And that's what I like about MetricsDAO. You have this pathway to contribution also that gets you involved with the way the DAO operates. You're rewarded for that with the xMetrics tokens. And there's a broader movement towards the vision of getting towards that standard that we talked about. However, every community is different. The way a gamer is attached to making the game work may not be the same as how a bunch of traders want to get involved with a tool or something like that. What has been the response of the analysts that has been a part of the community to not just get participate in the contests and just submit, but to get involved in the community and take MetricsDAO forward? Because if the community is running things, then how has been the response of the analysts that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, worth noting that in bounty hunting communities or networks, there's this sense of competition that can almost run against this desire for transparency and collaboration. So there's definitely been a lot of ongoing communication, I'd say, within our network from core to participant network, because you're going to have people that fall on either side of that conversation throughout the whole spectrum. But really, yeah, just trying to drive collaboration, transparency, be clear about the value that comes from sharing work and building on top of each other's work. And through that, I think we've really broken through and we've seen community members and participants grow from doing very basic things to very advanced analytics, and then even becoming more mentors, leading workshops, helping other people learn. There's definitely, I think, a flip that happens once you start to understand the ethos of the space. Initially too, like I was a little confused, like, hey, I can do all this work and share it publicly. This isn't what I do in my normal job. But once you realize, oh my gosh, I did that, and then Abhishek picked it up and he made it better, and now I can build on top of what you built, and like I can just keep going, and people realize the speed and value that comes from it. We've had a lot of our contributors, so people that are on more the operational side, are either there because they started on the bounty program, or there because they want to learn and get involved in crypto and they're looking for a way to do things. And getting back to what you said about these paths for contribution, I really love this concept of permissionless contribution and permission reward. You want to make it very possible for people to do things. And then you want to be very mindful about the way that you distribute rewards to the people that are doing things, because whatever action you're rewarding is the action you're going to get more of.
Totally agree with you on that one, Drake. So composability is like one of the cornerstones of the ecosystem that we are trying to build. I had a question regarding the bounty program. If we check other bounty programs, like creative bounty programs, their criteria of judgment is like how good the art is appealing or how creative it has been created. But when it comes down to bounties like data analytical plays, then the outcome tends to be binary. So how do you create classifications that, like, if the guy has solved, who would be the first one, who would not get the money, who will get the money? Because everybody who solves it, it's solved. Like, how do you get to that clarity?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think too, because a lot of the bounty space and reward mechanisms for bounties that I've seen, I think differ from MetricsDAO and Flipside's approach, in that they do choose one winner. You're looking for who's the winner or what's the best outcome. There's absolutely value in that type of bounty work, but something that I really value about the MetricsDAO approach is like we're paying generally more than the winner. We want people to be engaged and continue to get better, and we believe that ongoing incentive will lead to that. Also, don't know if I fully agree with binary right outcome. I think that usually by getting a prompt and like producing work, you can actually end up with more questions than you started with. And again, having this exogenous innovation mindset, you might ask an analyst, what's the value of X? And they might come back, well, here's the value of X, but here's also the value of Y. Did you think about this? And that can lead to a whole new path of thinking. Some of the other things that we look at is just like professionalism and presentation. You can build a bar chart with really bad labels and it might have the answer, but it's not properly communicating that answer to the viewer, then it's lower value. Hill Dobby and I have both been big proponents of the value of presentation in analytics over the past year or so. And I will even say there's opportunity for people that want to get more into analytics to just go take dashboards that other people have built, fork them and improve the presentation, and you would probably get better distribution than the people that maybe did the underlying work. So have, again, this build on top of each other, composable mindset. Like some of the analysts in our network are better at presentation and some of them are better at analytics. So working together, collaborating, finding the best outcome, I find it to be more of a multi-party type of engagement than a single party person working in a dark room. I'm the winner. That type of stuff might make you a little more money early on, but it's going to slow your growth.
You mentioned that earlier also you mentioned that there's this competition mentality among analysts that kind of come in the way of creating that community. And over here, you have this tier system for kind of determining how good a submission is by when it comes to either the analytics and the presentation. Why I'm bringing that out is there's a culture that exists among analysts in different countries. The sort of focus that someone has when it comes to analytics, the presentation may be different and they see it subjectively across countries. How do you bring that sort of standardization that is inclusive for different countries that way, maybe someone from China, the way, or someone from India, they all come in and it becomes easy to come in with the MetricsDAO standard of coming out with that sort of submissions. How has it been like working with these people that way?
Yeah, I think there's a couple approaches. One of them more educational and one of them maybe more process. So on the educational side, these ongoing workshops and just showing what does MetricsDAO, its extended network, see as high value? What do partners see as high value? Showing off top work, showing off how to produce that work through both synchronous sessions and then also maybe at the end of a bounty cycle, publishing, hey, here's the best work. This is the reason why this is the best work. Here's maybe some things that could have made this even better. So there's this ongoing like highlighting of the best work, which from a competitive mindset, you probably want to be highlighted. So you probably want to take on whatever that person is doing. We also have ongoing feedback that's occurring through the peer review system. So I think really important to call out that when the MetricsDAO Analyst Network produces work, it's not like me just going through all the work, choosing which one's the best. Like it goes into the network. and the network is peer reviewing itself. So we have a system wherein the top analysts get access to another workflow, which is that reviewer workflow. And that reviewer workflow includes different rubric things. Maybe the presentation could have been better this way or that way, as well as some notes. And then as far as maybe the more process-based approach to this, been experimenting a little bit with kind of like multi-cycle development. So our process is pretty simple and modular, again, looking to embrace that composability mindset of call response system with a production and review. If we string a couple of those together, building on top of the work that was produced in the previous cycle, we can maybe work from, hey, let's start with very simple spec. Now we have some awesome analytics. Maybe up the visualization. Now maybe we up the rhetoric or like the language on that dashboard as well. So again, getting people to work together, tapping different skills, and then also educating everyone on how they can increase all of those skills.
You have these cross-pollination of insights that goes across the hierarchy of the analyst network itself that enable to kind of iterate on a standard through which all these submissions could come pretty fairly. You also mentioned the aspect of educational on-ramps, which has been very critical to getting people from different backgrounds to come in and be able to be part of that cohesive community that way. Tell us about how you, for people who are outside MetricsDAO, what exactly does your education programs offer and how has it shaped your community that way? If you could get into that, that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Our growth team now oversees all the education initiatives. And I guess I'll take a step back to say that education was something that I was wrong about. Like when we first entered into this MetricsDAO initiative, personally, I was not super excited to spend energy on education. I think there's so much desire around crypto to educate people, which is very healthy, it's very good, but it sometimes feels unfocused and it just feels like, oh, we're just going to educate people. What does that mean? So our network at MetricsDAO was excited to do education. Again, a merge initiative. Okay, let's see what happens here. And they started to run workshops where they teach people how to use Flipside or how to use Dune. And we would get tons of people that would come to the workshops. And based on the people that were coming to the workshops, we were actually building analysts. Like the education was working. And it was so impressive and so amazing that emergent initiative became part of our precision-based approach in the next season. And we did a full-on blockchain analytics course. And this would take people from really 0 to 1 on blockchain analytics. You don't know SQL, we'll teach you SQL. You don't really understand crypto concepts, we'll teach you crypto concepts. Based on what I see in my experience, I think that if you're crypto and you want to learn analytics or analytics and you want to learn crypto, it's super easy to pick the other one up. As long as you have the passion and desire to learn, like the network of people to help you learn those skills is very available. If you don't know either one, it's still super possible. Like MetricsDAO has produced resources and has a network of mentors that you can access to learn both sides of that simultaneously. We had over 500 people participate in the blockchain analytics course, with over 100 of those people completing all 4 of the quizzes. And I think out of that group of 100, we saw 20 of those go on to submit a bounty in the next week or so. So definitely seeing like actual conversion from this type of work, as well as a community that is again more collaborative and transparent because they see other people coming in that are excited to learn and other people want to give that knowledge. It just continues to breed this sharing, which is really beautiful.
That's amazing. You didn't expect the educational on-ramp to work, but it panned out. Even I must tell you one small fact. Abhishek here has actually been a part of your course.
I was going to save that as a little nugget at the end.
I hope it went okay.
I do have the co-ops though.
Yeah, people try to initiate this whole educational on-ramp from day one, but this was something that just came emergent. You guys didn't expect it, and it turned out to be a whole theme of why your entire network really turns out to be a solid one. Before I get into the lessons that you could share for other communities to develop their educational on-ramp, could you interface with the community so much? Is there a success story, a certain analyst that you're really proud of and that's come through the ranks that way?
Oh man, so many. I guess one of the first that comes to mind for me is R+. So Rob, I initially met when we were getting things started with MetricsDAO. We were still really early looking for just bootstrapping operational teams. I'd say this is when we're like, shoot, we need a participant network and we need a team of people and we don't have either one. I just got to get on the phone and talk to everyone that shows up. And that was a very interesting time in MetricsDAO because so many of those phone calls led to really important meetings and important people in MetricsDAO, and those people have now gone on and have full-on careers in crypto. So Rob, strong analyst, looking to get involved, get more active, came on and was involved with our growth team, doing a lot of the recaps of, hey, here's what other analysts are working on. That gave him so much exposure to what the top analysts were doing. Eventually, Rob was just writing about his own submissions because he had the best ones. And then now he is at Rated Network. So he's got a full role in crypto, spent the past, 6 to 12 months hanging out in MetricsDAO, getting exposure to things, and is now full-time in the space. There's a number of people in our community that are either been participants at different points, been contributors at different points, and are now full-time through that process, as well as all the work that they've been on their own, of course. We don't do that for people, but we create space for them to explore their interests. And the amazing thing about that is they stick around. So Rob is still a contributor on our growth team, hugely impactful person to help us continue to grow MetricsDAO. And by strengthening his network, hopefully we have access to his network from MetricsDAO as well. And he should feel good to have access into MetricsDAO from his side.
I love that, that aspect of giving back to the community that way. You guys have given these people so much. You've helped them kind of land the jobs also. And that kind of builds that virtuous cycle where you're able to strengthen the community that way. And people who look and see that cycle also, they feel like, okay, there's something really special going on here, and how do we get it? And now that you mentioned something that's gotten even Abhishek interested in this, both of us, we're not the courses type, by the way, if you can see. What are the lessons that you would give to other communities that's looking to get that sort of educational on ramps for people? Because you're doing it for crypto analytics, something that's so nascent, and you can't really say the science is trust the science on this one just yet, right? Probably just a couple of years, and then you're building the courses, you're at the frontier of it. How would you design it for something so emergent as this, and how to make it in a way that the community also benefits the most out of it?
Yeah, it's a tough question. And honestly, there's so many members of the growth team that could answer this better than me. My perspective on this is that being niche is super important. Again, there's a lot of people that are like, we're just going to teach people crypto. And like, guys, that's way too much information. Like, I don't even know that much about crypto. There's so much information out there. You need to have a very specific niche of, we're going to dig into crypto analytics. We're going to teach people SQL. We're going to teach people how to understand how to use the Flipside tooling system, the Dune tooling system. And then having a reason to do that and having some sort of like after the education outcome. So at MetricsDAO, again, we run these programs so that people can graduate and then go into the bounty system. There's somewhere for them to land where they can continue to get better after they go through the initial. So I think that nicheness as well as somewhere to go, but also you need the right educators. And we're fortunate in MetricsDAO that we have a lot of analysts that are top of their class in what they do and are willing to teach that in synchronous sessions to build content for async as well. And I think the combination of those three things, niche, some sort of outcome-oriented education, and then having the right people that are like boots on the ground can actually share this information, especially because it's so nascent. If I taught you the crypto analytics that I knew a year ago, it would be out of date now. The tools have all evolved.
Wow. And that course has to constantly stay updated with time also. So that's why that network helps. Because if you were to take it from a textbook or a dead Coursera thing, you don't have that constant interaction with the network itself to keep iterating with that. And that's another benefit of being part of a network like this, that you constantly stay updated of what's going on, and you have an opportunity to interface with that with real-time people, with the best people working with it on a daily basis. The way I see it,
I would just like to add one thing here. So since I took the course, I'm speaking from experiences. I think speaking to other data analysts, they would need so much time to learn this. But since we were learning from the best minds, we were able to pick it up like that. So that's like an advantage. And I can't believe like learning from the Like, what are the chances of me asking a data analyst to teach me and then he goes about it, rather than learning it from a DAO, wherein I'm learning from the best of minds, and that too for free. On top of that, if I graduate, I get a job. That's such a great opportunity.
Yeah, even if you take a look at mainstream Coursera and Udemy and all of that, sorry, not Udemy, Udacity. You have to go through a massive course fee for that as well as Coursera. And it's only just a bunch of questions you can ask the educator on Coursera. But here you're chatting with these people and that there's a daily interaction that goes with it, and that's pretty neat. But stepping back a little, the educational on ramp is what's really worked out for the MetricsDAO to build that cohesion and grow the network as it seems. But the way your bounty ops system serves the broader operations itself. But now we come to a different piece of the puzzle, that's your token, xMetrics. That's something that's really shaped out how contributors work to build the broader MetricsDAO vision. Could you talk about, for people who are new to this whole DAO itself, what exactly xMetrics is all about, and how did you build the tokenomics for this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to give a little preface to that as well, it's important to call out that the main value flowing through our system is in the form of what we call partner tokens, just like an arbitrary name for whatever payment token our partner is using. When we worked with Messari, they paid us in USDC. Worked with Uniswap, we got paid in Uni. So Uni in that case is the token that's incentivizing the analysts to do different actions. We do use xMetric as a ERC20. It's non-transferable. It operates as like a localized reputation token. And what we'll do is, on top of any partner tokens that are being paid to different service providers or analysts in our network, we'll also include xMetric amount based on the quality of their work or their engagement. We've looked at this as a way to beta test some of the concepts that we want to see with the full metric token and metric protocol launch. Very simply, we will say, have a threshold that we'll watch that we might call, hey, if you're above this, you're an xMetric master, is what we call it right now. It's just a made up name, but basically we're just having some sort of reputation line, and we're saying some people are above this line and some people are below this line. That line might move over time as more reputation is minted into the system, but we'll use that line to determine how work should flow to different participants. Back to that peer review concept, we want our peer reviewers, those that are looking at the work of others, to be high reputation individuals within our system, people that we trust. And they earn that trust based on doing good work. So analysts will earn reputation over time for doing good work, and then by earning that reputation, get access to additional workflow opportunities, which might not be available to people that have yet to earn that reputation. Peer review is the most obvious one, but there are other cases where we may run campaigns for partners that are focused on more of that educational side, and maybe we want to have anyone be able to come work on this. We might have other ones where maybe the budget's a little bit tighter. We're really seeking a high reputation group of analysts to work on this. We need a quick turnaround. Let's tap that group of people that are above that arbitrary line. It's been a lot of experimentation. I wouldn't say we've nailed it yet. We're still tuning the amounts that get dispersed for different actions, but due to the non-transferable nature, due to some of the other control mechanisms we have, it really just lets us open up new experimentation space.
You have xMetrics as a non-transferable token. At the same time, it's given out as a reward for these people who want to benefit from putting in that submissions and all of that. I see a dissonance that people want to be able to trade those tokens, and there might be some people who see it as a value. What's been the response of your community towards xMetrics as a non-tradable token? And for communities who are looking to issue their token, how would you decide, yes, I should go for a tradable token or stick it to non-tradable?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think too, like a place where a lot of operators and network launchers are still learning and figuring out the right way to do this. I'd say when I think about the future of MetricsDAO and I think about the future of other token networks, I think multi-token systems are going to be more exciting and have more opportunity than some. If you think about DAO 1.0, like one token, one vote, it's also the utility. It's all wrapped up in one. Things get a little out of whack in terms of incentive alignment. So I'd say our community has been very receptive to the xMetric token, particularly because of its utility to unlock more workflow opportunity. Again, like you might not be really getting value, like a tradable value in the xMetric token, but it has a utility in that it opens up other doors for you. People have been very receptive to that. When we were thinking about what the metric protocol would look like and started to play with this concept, I think it's adjusted how we think about the metric protocol and what the eventual like token system looks like. Again, digging into that like multi-token, more of an in-game economy than like a one token, one vote, one value type system.
Looking at that, you have this whole tradable versus non-tradable going on over here, and you have this aspect of giving it reputation. The thing is, how people perceive that value is also defined by the broader market sentiment also. People can contribute and receive xMetrics. It's okay for them when it's like bull market. Perceive, one day xMetrics might turn into a tradable token. Let's just wait for a bit and contribute. And then one day we will be able to trade it and become like, we get the keys to the citadel. But now, whoops, bear market. What's been the whole reaction of the community that way? How's it been like for you as an operator to deal with that whole market dynamics in a way? And how do you reward people on the basis of that token or on stable coins and things like that, depending on how people should be incentivized?
Yeah, I think bull markets are full of speculators. So I personally have been very glad to be like at this stage of our development in this type of market environment. There's not a lot of people coming into the MetricsDAO Discord that are just looking for upside. It's really people that are looking for crypto analytics, which makes it very easy to build the culture within our community that will need to be resilient in a bull market where you're going to have more speculators flowing into spaces. In terms of how I see the market impacting MetricsDAO, I think it's similar to how it's impacting a lot of DAOs and a lot of organizations right now. Deal flows down, grants programs are really reconsidering how they're spending. People are just getting tighter with budgets. The same that you would see in any kind of market downturn and the way that any business or any organization would react to that. Fortunately, I don't really think that our community has changed because of that. Again, maybe just the lack of speculators in our spaces, which is more of a blessing than anything else. Again, because of the way that our system works, like xMetric is really just like a tool within the system to access the value. And the value in that system is, again, going to be in the form of whatever tokens we're getting from our partners. Aave gives us Aave tokens. Terra gives us Luna. We have USDC flowing in as well. We pay our contributors in stablecoins, and then our analysts are just getting whatever token is coming from our partners with the understanding that different tokens are going to elicit different behaviors.
That's fair. You have your partners come in and as you say, in the broader culture, you weed out that sort of speculators anyway. You have a solid educational on-ramp. You have people with the top minds. It would be dumb for you to just speculate and walk away from the community itself. Why would you want to walk away from the smartest people in the room that way? It makes sense for you to contribute and stay the course only. That's a system you allow for that. And especially if you're doing something like analytics, the contributor journey is that way where what's the point of doing one submission and walking away when the whole market itself is so tuned to change that in a year from now, that the way analytics can change. So isn't it smarter to stick with the community that's working at the frontier of it and learn and stick with it? In that sense, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of communities, what I love about xMetrics that way is you guys are tapping into the whole reputation mechanism of spreading that token across people who get it either for doing the submissions right or to allow them to get into those sort of roles where they can contribute to the broader operations of metrics itself. They get to be a voice, not just a guy who gets money for the whole submissions itself. What's been the insights you've gained from building this sort of mechanism? It's curious. And how is the reputations of your community stacked up with time? You're the analyst, so I think you would have found this also pretty fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. I think the whole reputation space has been very interesting over the past year and a half, or maybe shorter time frame than that. But I think I've seen a lot of groups building or trying to build global reputation systems. and trying to understand like what's the reputation of an Ethereum user, and maybe to use that information to give them a credit line or some other sort of thing. I think the global reputation problem is a little early for us to be solving, but the localized reputation problem is right on time. So again, like having a localized reputation economy allows us to control things within a box that we understand. And we're not operating in some totally wall-less world. These people are operating within the MetricsDAO ecosystem. They're either producing analytics, they're producing noise around analytics. Again, their reputation is very tied to this local space and this localized goal. I think maybe this is a little out of scope for our conversation, but I think that there are going to be interesting global reputation opportunities based on strong local reputation economies that build over the next couple of years. Like right now, I don't think that having reputation in MetricsDAO is super transferable. But if MetricsDAO achieves its mission and continues to be a pillar of analytics insight, then that reputation might have some value in another space. And you start to think about what global reputation actually could look like. In the meantime, like really exciting experimentation space. Again, like looking at it as a beta token, like we've given ourselves the room and permission to experiment and not get too tied up with the way things are working. Initially, like the way that we were distributing this is, oh, maybe we're giving too much out to this actor group. We need to tune this knob a little bit. Giving ourselves the permission to tune those knobs and to continue to experiment has made it easy for us to continue to iterate. I think it's super high value. I don't think that I would start another token network without a localized reputation economy.
You've never had the way the DAOs actually see tokens, and if you see the crypto space before that, it's always been a way to incentivize. But it's with DAOs now that you have this reputation layer also that kind of allows it for a greater scope when it comes to having a voice and all of that. And that experimentation is pretty fascinating to see. You mentioned that the global reputation system is built on top of localized reputations. My question is, reputation is seen from the eyes of the observer. It's not seen from the eyes of the beholder. And the way reputation is seen across communities is also very subjective. So when you're tokenizing that reputation, how do you come to a certain value when everybody sees it in so many different ways?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And again, want to recognize that I'm maybe speaking a little bit out of my knowledge here. But yeah, I do think that like localized reputation systems are much easier to build up because you're operating within a set of rules. Then I think that on top of that, you might have a global reputation value or set of heuristics that are driven off of those localized reputation systems that you trust. And I would also expect a variety of different ways to combine those to come up with different scores. And then you would choose which one you trust depending on your use case. Again, I think we're far out. Eventually, like you get a polycentric situation where like you say, oh, these reputation systems are highly developed. They're full of networks of people that have been balancing reputation against each other over a long period of time. I don't even think that the localized system has been figured out yet. We're still playing with concepts at Metrics around like reputation decay and should reputation last over time. If you were really great a couple of years ago, does that mean you're still great now? If the world changed, did you change? So I think that there's a lot of design space here and a lot of problem solving still to come, but excited to at least be playing with it in our own little world.
Oh, absolutely. I think the concept of reputation decay and how it evolves with time, that's a lot of experimentation that I haven't seen besides what you mentioned. That's pretty fascinating. Now, just stepping back and just talking about the broader roadmap ahead for MetricsDAO, what can people expect? And you have so much that you've outlined when it comes to your bounty ops, you have the xMetrics and things like that. What can people expect from the future?
Yeah, I'd say we should expect a lot more flow of bounties in season 3. So season 3 will launch mid to late October. It's about a week or so now from when we're recording. That'll be awesome. It'll give us more flow through the system, which allows us to run experiments. It also creates workflow for participants to earn reputation or to earn partner tokens, as well as our contributors to clutch those goals. The other thing that'll be happening in parallel is really digging in now on metrics protocol development and what that system looks like. I think we've got a much clearer concept now now that we've been able to run this kind of reputation experiment, and we can think about how that operates with our tradable token metric. So that's really where I've been spending a lot of my time now, is on kind of that protocol design and app design, and spending time with the teams that are actually driving that value. But we're going to have a lot of flow in the DAO as it stands right now. So definitely looking for people to come get involved, whether you want to come analyze things, you want to come learn how to be an analyst, you want to contribute and support those operations. Let's have a chat.
Oh, absolutely. We are really excited to see what season 3 kind of holds for Metrics. It's been a phenomenal conversation having you in the episode with us, Drake. Thank you so much for giving our listeners a broad insight about what MetricsDAO is all about, the sort of work that you've done to enable that sort of network and to create a broader standard for analytics is pretty lit. A big shout out to the community also for the wonderful on-ramps that you've set up and the sort of insights that we can see with xMetrics and the reputation system itself. That's one thing that I'm pretty fascinated with. Where can people follow you, MetricsDAO, or any other initiative that you care about?
Yeah, definitely. You can follow MetricsDAO on Twitter. That's going to be our main communication platform, along with our Discord, MetricsDAO.xyz. You can join our Discord from there as well. And if anyone wants to follow me, I'm Drake Danner on Twitter, and DMs are open. I'm always happy to have a chat with anyone.